It is 4 o'clock, so we are going to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to make the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. Approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that the rules of procedure order be suspended to move delegations presentations up in the order to follow number 5, mayor's remarks, and further that the agenda for the regular council meeting held February 28th be approved as amendment. Are there amendments, Kathy?
Yes, there are. Under number 16 for closed session, there is another closed session regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Okay, that's it. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Any questions or comments on that? Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there any way we could move voting on the budget package till after we talk about the master fire plan and approval of that?
Why?
Because I want to discuss if the talk on the master fire plan is about replacing the Arden Fire Hall, then I'd like to discuss not spending the money on the repairs of the current Arden Hall and putting that in reserve instead to go towards the building of the hall.
I think the chief will answer that by saying the repairs have to be done in order to use it for this year. It's not a would like to just fix that. It's a have to. Chris, is that the case? We can certainly, we need to discuss this later, but
Every year.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy. Yes, so the repairs that I'm doing already started. I have to deal with health and safety concerns. We had to do something with it. There was no functioning washroom. The drains were not going into a proper septic system, so I couldn't leave it. So I did start it now. Having said that, I mean, I'm trying to get it so it's usable as a training facility. Right now, it's not. So it's I'm trying to get, things back into order. Obviously, the long term is for a new station. I have got plans and I can bring a report to council to talk about that in the future.
Okay, I just, like I said, if we're going to spend over $500,000 on a hall, you've explained that it is health and safety, and I understand that, but
and I think it's $15,000.
No, it's 45,000.
but a new hall would be over $500,000. To build a new hall, it would be over $500,000. So expensing large
Okay.
expenses on repairs. That was where my question was coming
Okay,
from.
we're really just opening the meeting at this point. Okay, so we've got the amendment to the agenda. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof by any member of council on any item in tonight's agenda? Nikki?
I, Nikki Gowdy, declare a potential deemed direct or indirect pecuniary interest on council agenda dated February 28th on item 8A, accounts payable, for the following reason: that there's 2 payments being made to myself.
Now, is that for municipal stuff?
Yeah.
You don't have to declare for that. Do you?
Well, because of her
Going
her
to a
employment.
conference.
Oh.
We'll go ahead and accept it, but
Yeah.
if it's a payment to you for a conference that's authorized by the municipality, it's not a conflict of interest that I know of, but we will ask Mr. Mascarin that question.
Yes, and it's also for the filing fee for my,
For where she works.
Okay,
Was payment.
that, so that part for
oh,
sure.
no, it's the filing fee for running for municipal council. I'm getting reimbursed for that too.
No, it's not a declaration.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's keep it for now and clear that with John, just so we're sure. But I don't think it's a conflict. All right. Approval of the minutes. There's no other declarations. Okay. Moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that the minutes of the special council meeting held January 30th, January 31, February 6th, and the regular council meeting held February the 14th, 2023 be approved as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Mayor's remarks. After reading this motion, this is what I've been doing with you, all those meetings that we've been at. The other thing I would add is the Heritage Festival. This hall was full for the evening of entertainment and went very well. It was a snowy day. The parking lot was full. Arden definitely had a great time. They got their skating in, and so it was a smaller event this year, but it's just going to get bigger as we go along. So it was a good time, and lots of kids were here, which was great to see. So congratulations to the Heritage Festival group. Lynn, do you want to add anything about the festival?
I think both the Saturday and Sunday events in Arden were very well attended with complete families, not just like children. It was of all ages, and I went to both events and had a fabulous time. So I thank everybody that was involved with it. It was so much fun.
Excellent. Good. Anybody else have anything to add? Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just would like to acknowledge that District 4 had an event here in the hall on Saturday. They were able to raise over $4,000 for the district, and the Lions Club presented Bob and Christine Teal with a civic volunteer award for their years of dedication and service to the community. So it was a nice event.
Yes, yes. Was excellent.
That's what I heard.
And it was the Chinese meal and auction, right?
And it was sold
And
out.
they do it every year, and the tickets are gone within probably 4 or 5 days of it being advertised. So if you haven't been, you should try it. It's an amazing event. Okay. We are going to move to delegations now, and we have with us Travis Merkley by Zoom, and he's with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, account manager for Impact. Travis, are you with us?
I am here. Just, I think the presentation will be brought up here.
Can you hear us, Travis?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the presentation to come up here. I believe you guys are bringing it up for me. It's my understanding, so I'm just waiting for it to come up. And then I'll.
Travis, could you log out and log back in? We're having some technical difficulties here.
Yep.
Oh, there he's back. Travis, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Yep. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Just a little louder, Travis.
Can you hear me now?
We're having difficulties hearing you.
Okay.
Just
Let me.
that's better.
Is that better? All right, maybe it's my headset. I'll go without the headset. It's fine. There's no.
Excellent. Okay,
Perfect.
you go ahead.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that you guys are bringing up the presentation for me, and I will. I've already sent it through, so just wait. Oh, there it is. Perfect. All right. So good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Smith, and members of council for allowing me some time to present to you. So I'm Travis Merkley, and I'm the account manager with the Municipal and Stakeholder Relations Department. I'm located in the Kingston field office, servicing the city of Kingston, Frontenac, and Lennox and Addington counties. First of all, I'd like to take a moment to congratulate all of you on your recent elections. I look forward to working with you throughout 2023 and beyond. And whether you're a newly elected or seasoned elected official, please know that we're here to help. So today's presentation will be a high-level overview of impact on the property assessment system in Ontario. If there are any topics within the presentation that council believes that they'd like some further knowledge on, please let me know and we can follow it up with a further another delegation, or I can get the information to you. So yes, next slide. So yep, that's perfect. Thank you. So at MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario, worth a combined $3 trillion. In the past year, Ontario has grown by approximately 45,000 new residential homes, and in 2022, we added more than 37 billion in new assessments. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and these assessments generate approximately 30 billion in tax revenue. Next slide, please. Perfect. So there are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and all have a different role and interest in the process. First is the provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation as well as policies. They also determine the educational property tax rate. There is also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessment value, which is the Assessment Review Board, or ARB for short, which also falls in the jurisdiction of the province. Next is MPAC. MPAC is an independent, non-for-profit corporation funded by all Ontario's municipalities. Our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set out by the Ontario government. We are accountable to the province, municipalities, and property taxpayers of Ontario through a board of directors that is comprised of a provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representative appointed by the Ministry of Finance. Next is municipalities. Municipalities determine their budgetary requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services such as police, fire, roads, sidewalks, public transit, waste management, and municipal facilities. Municipalities use MPAC's assessments and the established tax rate to distribute the tax requirement to ratepayers. And lastly are the property owners who pay the property taxes as well as set market values through property purchase and sale. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's property database includes inspecting and assessing new constructions, addition, and renovations promptly, responding to owner inquiries and working to help them understand their assessment, and also supporting municipalities through ongoing support and regular meetings, offering Municipal Connect, which is where municipal stakeholders can obtain the primary source of assessment-related information, and working collaboratively on projects that are important to you, such as digital permitting. We also have important statutory duties, such as handling requests for reconsiderations or maintaining people data by tracking school support for over 5.5 million properties. Next slide, please. So monitoring the market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day and every year to keep our property data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislative valuation date. We call this an assessment update or a reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent assessment update, which took place in 2017, was January 1st, 2016. This is when we determine what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at a particular point in time. Regular reevaluations of properties ensure that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar property taxes. It is important to note that the provincial government determines when MPAC conducts each province-wide assessment update and sets the valuation date for each cycle. Next slide, please. Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. To do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date, as I've noted on the previous slide. This principle is called current value assessment. This is the price a property might reasonably expect to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure on the open market. Next slide, please. We were scheduled to conduct an assessment update in 2020 that would have taken effect for 2021, but the provincial government postponed it due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this was done to provide stability and certainty to taxpayers, and as well as to enable municipalities to focus on responding to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, all property assessments continue to be based on the Ontario's legislative valuation date of January 1st, 2016, as they have been since 2017. Once the province announces when the next assessment update will take place and what that valuation date will be, we will let you know, and we can work to have meaningful conversations as we work to finalize assessment values within your community. Next slide, please. So this slide explains what happens when there actually is an assessment update. It shows the link between a chosen valuation date, the mailing of MPAC's assessment notice, and phase in, which is bringing the new assessment value of property into effect over a legislative period of time. The phase-in program, which was introduced by the province, is to provide an additional level of taxability and predictability. So when there is an increase in the market between assessment updates, the increase is phased in gradually over 4 years. If there is a decrease, it's applied within the first year of the cycle. Next slide, please. Next, let's briefly talk about valuation in Ontario. In Ontario, there are 3 industry-wide approaches to valuing properties. The first of these approaches is the direct comparison approach, and this approach is primarily used for your residential type properties. In this approach, recent market sales of comparable properties are analyzed to provide an indication of value for properties assessed through this approach. There are 5 major factors that account for approximately 85% of a property's value, which are location, lot size, quality of construction, square footage, and age. The next approach is the income approach. It is generally used for industrial malls, large medical dental buildings, office buildings, and shopping centers. So the ability to earn revenue is tied to the real estate and not the business that may run from the location. So to clarify, it's not the revenue being generated by the occupant, but rather the rent the occupant is paying the landlord that we use to value these type of properties. The method requires a detailed analysis of income and expenses, both for the property being valued and other properties, to determine how much income a property could be expected to generate if sold on the open market. The last approach is the cost approach, and is typically used for your general purpose type industrial properties, small retail and warehousing, just to name a few. This approach is used when the property is unique and rarely sold in the open market, as we cannot rely on either the direct comparison or income approach to determine its current value. The cost approach is a 3-step process. First, we calculate the cost of replacing the building, structures, or other accessible fixtures to the land. Next, we deduct depreciation as all due to age. And finally, we add in the land to produce an overall value. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what draws our attention to a property? It's typically one of the following things: a market sale, a request from a municipality or property owner, building permit activity, an RFR or appeal. So our role is to take building permits and plans and turn them into assessment. Our municipal stakeholders rely on MPAC's assessment to levy property taxes. So the sooner the MPAC can deliver assessment, the sooner municipal stakeholders can realize the new revenue. Every year, MPAC processes an average 300,000 building permits for new developments or renovations. We are the only organization with this data set of all building permits in Ontario. Our understanding of this data gives us a unique perspective on the ways to modernize the collection in exchange to support our municipal partners. Next slide, please. So after we assess a property or change the assessment, we mail the property owner a property assessment notice. Sometimes property owners do not agree with our assessment value. A property owner might connect with you to let you know that they disagree with our assessment. It is important to remember that property assessments are not taxation. So if you do get an inquiry, you can help us by asking the property owner a few questions. If they could have sold their property on January 1st, 2016 for the assessment value. If they had visited About My Property to review the information that we have on file to ensure it's correct. If they had used About My Property to conduct comparable research on assessment values in their area. If the property owner still disagrees with their assessment, they have the option to file a request for reconsideration, and we will review that free of charge. There is also the ability to file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board. So the fastest way to start the filing is by filing the request for reconsideration through About My Property. But also property owners can still visit impact.ca and submit their request that way too. Next slide, please. So let's spend a moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. Assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes being paid. When a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessment value of property has changed, but rather how the assessment value has changed relative to the average change in the class in that community. The concept is explained in a recent MPAC toolkit that we have shared with municipalities, and I will discuss on the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in anticipation of the next province-wide assessment, we have implemented a strategy to address some misconceptions about that relationship between assessment value and taxation, including resources for municipalities that will ensure when an announcement is made, we're ready with the support you need. In this digital toolkit, which is available on impact.ca, it's used to help municipalities, including elected officials, to mitigate information and provide support and resources to educate and inform property owners. In the digital toolkit, you'll find a new video, how your property taxes are calculated. This video provides clarity for property owners on how taxes are calculated, including the link between assessment, municipal service costs, and required property taxes. As a reminder, and as shown on the myth versus fact infographic in the toolkit, an increase in a home's assessment value doesn't necessarily equate to an increase in taxes. If the municipality's operating budget doesn't change, but the assessment base doubles, then essentially the tax rate would decrease. I encourage, if time permits, to take a look at the resources available to you on impact.ca. Next slide, please. So thank you for having me this afternoon. We'd like to stay connected with you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our In Touch newsletter, which can be done through impact.ca. And we also have a number of resources available on impact.ca about this property assessment. And then lastly, the last slide is just, there's my contact information along with Tracy McIntyre, who is the regional manager for this area. So it's open for any questions at this point.
Thank you very much, Travis. Any questions or comments from council? I guess one of the things that we're anxious for is the next reassessment. And you're saying that the province hasn't told you yet when that will happen?
Exactly. So when they announce it, we're constantly doing sales investigations. We'll be ready to send out the assessment notices whenever they do make that announcement. And it's my understanding that they have been reaching out to municipalities to get their thoughts on on a date to go with. So, but certainly as soon as they provide a date of when we're going to do an assessment update, we'll be ready and we'll have those notices and we'll communicate.
Because certainly we know that the value at 2016 is nowhere close to the value at 2022, let alone 2023 or 24. And municipalities won't take a bundle of new assessment and collect a lot more money. We will say, we don't have to have our mill rate so high because now we have a good assessment base. And every municipality is looking forward to that assessment base growing so that we can do the things we have to do without really hurting a lot of our residents who can't afford a huge increase in their taxes. So if your assessment goes up, our tax rate goes down. And let's hope that's the way it works and we do it sooner than later. Any other questions or comments? Michael?
Just a quick comment, Madam Mayor. Travis is a very good representative for us. He's very responsive, caring, intelligent, and has always been a great pleasure to work with.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good. Always nice to have a good relationship with the local office.
Yeah,
I have a motion. Moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council receive the presentation from Travis Merkley, accountant manager with Impact for Information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Travis, for all that you do for us.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, there's no deferred items, so we're at Finance and Treasury has the floor today. First motion moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council receive the check distribution reports totaling $2,499,800.24 as prepared by the treasurer for information. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Motion moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council approve the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by Impact for 2021, 2022, and 2023 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there are a number of those there. Does anybody have any question on any of those apportionments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Craig Middleton, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council for the Township of Central Frontenac approve the following reduction of assessment pursuant to the Municipal Act. Rule number 1039-060-010, 13700 price, Zachary William Ronald, for the period of April 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, as reported by impact raised by fire, demolition, or otherwise 357-1 DI. And further, that council approve an adjustment of taxes to be calculated by the tax department for the related period. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. And next we have investment report. Moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Susan Irwin. Whereas the township's investment policy and Ontario Regulation 438-97 requires that when the township invests in a security prescribed by the policy and the regulation, the treasurer shall prepare and provide an investment report annually to council. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that council receive the investment report as prepared by the treasurer for information. Discussion, questions of Michael? All those in favor? Carried. Council remuneration, moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Susan Irwin, whereas section 284 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001, chapter 25 states that the treasurer of a municipality shall in each year on or before March 31st provide to council of the municipality an itemized statement on remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that council receive the 2022 council committee remuneration and expenses as prepared by the treasurer for information. Any discussion on that? Questions? All those in favor? Carried. Conference sound system, RFP. Moved by Lynn, seconded by Susan. Whereas a request for proposal, RFP number TR 2023-01 for a conference discussion system was posted on January the 5th, 2023, with a closing date of February 3rd, 2023. And whereas 6 quotes were received from 3 proponents for wired and wireless system options. And whereas after reviewing the proposals and interviewing the bidders, staff are recommending to council that it accept the quote from Applied Electronics for a wireless system as the successful bidder. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that council approves the recommendation of staff and award the proposal for a conference discussion system to be Applied Electronics in the amount of $37,489, excluding HST. And further, that the treasurer be authorized to issue a purchase order for the proposal. Discussion? Certainly wireless will eliminate these hazards. Go ahead, Craig.
What did we budget in the budget for that? I thought it was 30.
So through Madam Mayor, Councilor Middleton, we initially had 32,000 in the draft budget. In one of our department head sessions, we increased that to 39,000. We had more information at that point, and 39,000 is what's in the draft budget that's before council tonight.
Okay, so it's within budget.
It seems like a lot to me for a sound system of near $40,000.
Hopefully it'll last long. By the way, this is Ryan Dixon from the county.
I'm the business analyst for the County of Frontenac, and I'm acting service desk analyst for Central Frontenac right now. So I helped on the technical side of this. And yes, the wireless is expensive compared to wired, but it's a newer technology, and we cost based it on 6 years return on investment, just in terms of setup time for staff, the mats that you see that we have to roll out, trip hazards, such as, and that kind of stuff. Also configuration, it gives the hall more configuration options than just these tables. You can move the wireless mics around, and you're not recorded. So you're paying a premium, yes, because of the wireless technology, but that's across the board, no matter which company you decide to get from.
Okay, Susan? Oh, Susan, and then Craig has another.
I can see that Applied Electronics is the lowest bidder.
Your mic, Susan, hold it closer to you.
Sorry. Always have to remind me. Applied Electronics is the lowest bidder, and I'm looking at the scoring matrix used. And in terms of related experience and references, that's 20% taken into account. So do you talk to other users of the system to check how happy they are with it, or what does that mean?
So the Applied Electronics had a big federal presence for their equipment. And so they talked about the fact that the federal government doesn't like to divulge everything, like their information. So doing the backgrounding check on the equipment from Applied Electronics that we want to purchase, it has a big presence in bigger organizations such as NATO and other, well, NATO is pretty big.
So we're getting value for money. That's
Absolutely.
our hope. Right? Thank you.
Okay, Craig, did you have another question?
Well, yeah, or just a comment like, so we're getting this here new system, like, so are we under the understanding, I guess, that Zoom's here to stay for these council meetings? Is that what we're predicting, or is like next year? We're
No,
just gonna go to like, you have to attend the meeting in person in order to come.
well, no, it's for being able to have the audience look at this on YouTube. You have to be transparent in your meetings. And as you can see, we don't get a lot of people sitting in the chairs, but it's amazing how many people will check the YouTube channels on council meetings. And it's a requirement now of the province that you need to be able to be open and transparent. And in order to do that, you need good systems that can record, and if you do get a crowd of people, you don't want to be tripping them either. So wireless is also a good idea for health and safety. So it is the way of the future. More people actually see council meetings now than they ever did in the past. Okay, anything else? All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Used to be the only time we filled the hall was something contentious. And that might still be the case, even with the microphones. All right, moved by Lynn and seconded by Susan, that council received the final budget presentation from the treasurer and consider passing the 2023 budget bylaw later in the meeting. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Madam Mayor, if I can just make a quick comment. I know it's not passed yet, but I know this has been a difficult year for the budget. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of stress, especially for new councillors. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time, for your reading, for your thoughts, and for your patience.
And I will add to that, it's the toughest year for a budget. And with 5 new people, you did a remarkable job. You asked all kinds of good questions, and we cut stuff that we need to do another time and not this time. And I think the next 4 years of budgets will be as productive as this year was. So thank you for your work. Okay, we have vendor approval list, moved by Lynn, seconded by Susan. Whereas the Township Procurement Policy Bylaw requires an annual council review and approval of the vendor list during budget deliberations. And whereas the treasurer is recommending that council approve the vendor of record list as presented. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve the vendor of record list as presented. Questions, comments? Susan?
So I see that, Michael, our treasurer can add vendors to the list
Yes.
at any time upon recommendation by an authorized person. Authorized person isn't defined.
Okay, through Madam Mayor to Councillor Irwin, in the procurement policy, the authorized person is there to a certain level, so department head. So I would take that as, and we don't have an official policy to add somebody in other than those words. So if Tyson had somebody and it was a bigger $60,000 item that he wanted to add, that may have to come to council, but if it was between 15 to 50,000, then Kathy could authorize me adding that vendor.
Thank you.
Okay, Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just gonna ask, does anybody actually come off the list? Like, we've seen lots of these and I don't think we've ever said, Michael, we should take some people off.
So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Smith, there are people that do come off when they haven't been used for a couple of years. In the report that I use through Diamond, we have like a year to life purchase, I think the column is called, and the date of when it was used. So if it hasn't been used for a few years, we may pull them off. It may do consultation with the department head. But a couple of years ago, we started adding swim refund, counselor filing feedback or whatever. So those ones we would pull out. So we probably spend a couple hours going through it each year. So yes.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay. This is Reg 28409 report. Moved by Susan, seconded by Lynn, that Council for the Township of Central Frontenac accept and approve the 2023 exclusion expenses report as required by Ontario Regulation 28409. Do you want to just briefly explain that to us?
So this is a report that when municipalities went to accrual accounting, adding in the capital assets and whatnot, we are not required to budget for amortization, post-employment expenses, or landfill costs. But now we are required to produce this report each year. So reviewing the requirements, I added a paragraph just before the financial implications section that said we would have to increase the tax levy by 35% if we were required to budget for the amortization, which is the expense that we allocate each year based on the capital asset purchase and how long it's going to last. We put an expense to each year. And then again, the post-employment and landfill. So we're not required to budget for them, but we are required to inform council that remind myself here quickly, the surplus would be that much lower, 4.7 million lower. So we would have to budget for a deficit every year or raise it that 33%.
So this report just reminds us that there could be very bad things ahead if everything went bad at one time.
There could, but I think, and I don't know, but I think that if the province required us to, that pretty much every municipality would be budgeting a deficit. Or they'd have to change that rule and allow us to budget for a deficit.
Or maybe they thought they'd just give us more money because of it. We're waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Moved by Susan, seconded by Lynn. Be it resolved that council receives for information the mileage rate report for information, and that council approves to increase or decrease, leave on change the mileage rate blank kilometers effective March 1st, 2023, and to update on a regular basis if applicable, normally on February 1st of each year, to keep match with CRA. The rate is presently
55 cents, Madam Mayor.
55 cents. Do you feel that should be left, increased, or decreased? And the mover and seconder needs to agree with whatever we come up with because they have moved and seconded the motion.
And Michael's provided.
Okay, Philip, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just was curious, what do we pay out annually right now on mileage? And then if we're looking to increase it, how much of an increase would that?
It's in that report, the mileage?
Well, through
What we
Madam
pay
Mayor,
per
Councillor
year?
Smith, I think Councillor Smith is looking at the total dollars that we would end up spending more. So about 20% more. I can look, I did a report when we were going through budget and it really wasn't that much, a few $100 to $1,000, but sometimes when we go to a conference, that mileage ends up getting put into the conference. So a couple $100 maybe is what I'm off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, suggestions? Stay at 55? I see yeses. Okay, Lynn and Susan, are you happy if I put 55 cents kilometer in here? Yeah,
I see that South Frontenac pays 55. It's a little higher in the north, but Frontenac Islands is 55 as well. So I think that's reasonable.
okay, all right.
I believe that South is looking at it this year. So they may not be at, or not at 68 cents now, they're at 55, but they may be changing. Obviously, we don't know that. We can always relook at it again next year or not.
Okay, all right, so, okay, Lynn,
I was just doing some research, looking around at some of the other areas, and I felt that 58 cents was a good option. It seemed like that's more common. But
58 or 68?
pardon?
I say 58 or
58, just a 3-cent increase.
Bill,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as a demonstration purposes, my car at 10 liters per 100 cost me 15 cents a kilometer. 55 cents, quite a profit.
but your insurance, your wear and tear, your tires is all taken into account with that.
I do agree with that, but everybody's got that anyway. So
Okay, so are we at 55 or 58? Mover and seconder,
I'm at 55.
okay,
So 58.
I'm okay with 55.
okay, all right, so it's 55 it is. So, and that council approves to leave on change the mileage rate 55 cents per kilometer effective March 1st, 2023, and to update on a regular basis if applicable, normally on February 1st of each year to keep match with CRA. All those in favor? What? Sorry,
You said we're gonna do it February 1st of every year to keep a match with CRA.
which we're not really
Well,
matching
CRA
CRA.
is at 68 cents. So
Okay, so
either
let's,
change that or we go to 68 cents.
Yeah. let's change that.
Well,
you
I don't
okay
know
with-
what everybody wanted to do.
Again, CRA is what the government, feds and provincial government will use. So-
But the motion does say that we're gonna keep it at 55, but then next year we're just gonna go to what CRA says. So
Well, we could adjust this email. We could still see what CRA says. Normally on February 1st of each year to keep match with CRA. So we'll be not normal.
is the intent for it to be automatic though?
No, no, it comes back to this table.
So Madam Mayor, and through to council, I believe the intent was if we changed to 68 cents to match CRA, we would be updated on a regular basis. If we just crossed out from normally on, then it would be effective March 1st and updated on a regular basis if applicable. So we either bring back a report or we don't if we felt it was necessary.
Craig?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Michael. So like, give us a rough idea. What are we looking at? If we went to 68 cents, how much increase in a year we're spending on mileage?
It's off the top of my head, approximately a couple $100 right now.
Say that again?
A couple $100 increased on top of what we're spending now, which
That's
1,000, 1,500.
That's 13 cents a kilometer more. Times all the staff and all the council.
For anybody that uses their personal vehicle to go to a work-related conference or
Yes.
work-related training,
Yes,
it would be 13 cents more. Yes.
yes. And what did we budget? Famous last words.
There's enough in the budget. I did look at that. There's like a $500 or so room.
We saved 1,500 on the mics in the budget.
Don't worry, the year's not up yet. We'll use up that 1,500. Okay, what do you want to do, folks?
You can take off, you just.
Do you want to just take off to keep match with CRA?
Just keep update on a regular basis after. normally on
I
February
think,
1st.
myself, I think if it says CRA, we go to 68 cents, it's just my opinion.
Okay. Can we change that to take CRA out?
Yeah, we can.
Mover, seconder, first?
Okay, that's up to them.
Okay,
It on a regular basis of applicable, normally on February 1st each year. And just
so
take
we're
out
going to
CRA
review it February 1st of each year.
And just take out CRAs.
All right. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Can't give us too many choices. Okay, moved by Bill Everett and seconded by Dan Meeks. The council received the CFFR activity report dated February 28th, 2023 for information. And Chris is here to answer any questions or comments that we might have. Mickey, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the chief. How is the data put in? I
Put
find
your
it,
mic up closer, Nikki.
sorry. How does the data put in? I find it extremely odd that Parham had no calls in January.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy. Not sure that how that happened. They certainly did have a few calls for medicals, but I'll have to look into that.
Okay, so it's, you're still in the new system, so we can expect glitches.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
For
you.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Lynn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 192 or page 18 of the report, it talks about population in Central Frontenac. And I'm assuming it's permanent residents population that it's discussing.
Are you in the master plan?
Yes?
That's the next one. We're just the activity report
Oh,
right here.
Sorry.
That's okay. Save that question. Anything else on the activity report? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. All right. This
Madam
one.
Mayor,
Yes,
next month, chief, is it possible to have Parham's data included? Like, this one's not accurate. You said there's a couple of calls. So next month, can you do an update with January and February's for us for March?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Please and thank you.
okay. Adoption of Fire Master Plan and its recommendations, moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Bill Everett. The council received the final Fire Master Plan prepared by Lumix Group for information and adopt the 23 recommendations contained in this report. Lynn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, now I'll ask my question. When you talk about it talks about how many residents we have, and it's only referring to permanent residents. And we all know that in the summer months at least, and if not other times of the year, it more than doubles with the seasonal residents. How does that affect the plan and the numbers of firefighters there are? Are there any implications to that?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Clegis. There is a fluctuation for sure of seasonal residents. We figure about 8,000 in the summer months. As far as services go, we seem to be holding our own as far as that goes, for the delivery of service for all the medical and fires and so on. So definitely it's busier in the summer months for us though with the traffic and everything else. But no, we seem to be okay with that. We are going to be having hopefully 2 summer students doing the smoke alarm program this summer. So that's a new thing that we're going to be doing, going door to door, installing smoke alarms for people that don't have them, including seasonal residents.
Plus, the fire department also attends the AGM meetings of the property owners associations.
We just started doing that last summer. Yes, we'll be going to all the events that we did last summer. We did the one in Arden. And we'll be attending the ones at Charlotte Lake and that as well. Yeah.
And Eagle Lake as well.
Yes. Yep. For sure.
Okay. Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You came to the Kennebec Lake Association meeting, but there are 2 other lake associations in Kennebec. The Horseshoe Lake Association and the Big Clear Lake Association. It would be nice to at least ask if we could have you attend those.
If they invite us, we will come.
For sure.
Great.
I
will
don't think
talk to
we've been
them.
invited.
Yeah, I will talk to them.
It was my first summer here, so I'm just sort of orienting myself to everything. We did get to most of the summer camps, so condo and all those to check them out, do inspections there as well. So yeah, the inspection program in the summer is going to be quite extensive. So
Good. That's good. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Philip?
I'm just wondering more about how the motion's worded. We did get some overview of the recommendations and the report. This is the first time we're seeing the full report. And just wondering if it makes more sense to accept this report for information and then have those recommendations brought back on a either more one-by-one basis, or instead of trying to approve it all the way it is today, because I would be voting against this today if we're saying to approve all the recommendations.
Do you have an answer for that, Chris? That the recommendations are the biggest part of the report to move
Correct.
forward.
Not knowing what there is, it could be a concern for council. I could say that it gives a foundation and a vision of where the department has to go moving forward. As we talked about in the training session, that the responsibilities for council now have increased immensely in the last 10 years or even the last 5 years. So the level of service that we're providing now, and certainly with the legislation that's in place, it puts us in a situation where we have to accommodate what they're asking. Now, as far as expense goes for some of the things that were recommended, maybe that's what the concerns are for councilors. I'm not sure, but if it is, that certainly there would be a report for that coming forward anyway. So.
And just to add to that, they are recommendations, so we can choose to accept them, or we can choose to move them backwards or forwards as we
Tonight,
work with the
we're
document.
suggesting to approve them all. That's,
Adopt
so it means we're moving forward with all 23 of them.
eventually. Yes, that's what that means. It doesn't mean we are going to do it all at once. There were a lot of those recommendations that didn't involve money.
No, some of them involved other parties agreeing to things for us to move forward with them as
Yes.
well. So.
Okay, if you want to say for information, but then when are you going to accept that? There's no sense.
So unfortunately, I don't have them all marked off, but I mean, there are some that we've already budgeted for that are easy to say, yes, we've agreed to those. But I think some of them need more discussion amongst the table to decide whether that's what we really want as a council or not.
Okay. Bill,
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Chief, did we not originally have 30 recommendations that we've already gone through 7? Is that 23 number not remaining?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Everett, I believe that there was the 23, not the 30. I believe it was 23 in total. And to add to that, to the, you know, I guess the big items is the fire station, Arden, obviously, and that those recommendations that are put forward were through statistics that were actually brought forward that were not discretionary. They're actually stats that prove, as we were told, that that's data information. That's not something that somebody's decided on their own with a flip of a pen. Those are actual numbers that were brought through with the proper data that was brought forward. So some of the things are there that are hard to swallow for sure at a cost, but I mean, it's a foundation to work towards for the best interest of the municipality and for the residents.
so maybe what we could do is accept this recommendations contained in the said report to be further discussed and set a separate meeting, because you're right, in our training session, we received a lot of information. We didn't really have an opportunity to discuss any of the recommendations, which is what I'm hearing we want to do. So I would say that this motion is to receive the final prepared plan and to adopt the recommendations contained in the said report after further review. And a recommendation is just a recommendation to council. It is not tying our hands that we have to approve that recommendation. We can change that recommendation. We can say, no, we don't agree with it and take it out. Is this not right? So,
Yes, Madam Mayor.
yes,
I'd prefer, Madam Mayor, that you say that we accept the master fire plan for information and further meet over the recommendations. I don't want to have any partial acceptance on the recommendations at all until we discuss it as a council further, whether they're a no cost recommendation and really easy fix. But like we had a meeting Wednesday night and now it's 6 days later and we're being told we have to accept it. And as you said, we haven't had time to digest it. We haven't had time to make any discussion at all. And some of even the ones that cost no money are still going to cost hurt feelings by residents. Like, there's stuff that needs to be discussed by us, and like even giving a partial approval of a recommendation gives guidance that they can go ahead with those recommendations.
You could put that you could. Madam Mayor, maybe what could be in the resolution to change is that council receive the final fire master plan prepared by Lumix for information and bring back the 23 recommendations contained in the said report for further discussion. Okay, I think that's maybe the way to word it. Then we can go through them, because I mean, you're right. In one of the recommendations, certainly with the Arden Fire Station, council will have to make a decision at that point, because you're going to have to put so much money away each year to even get to that point. So, and maybe at that point, they can make that decision. That's okay. There's one point.
Is that acceptable to folks? Okay, so what I have what the motion says now, mover Danny, seconded Bill. The council received the final fire master plan prepared by Lumix Group for information, and that it be brought back and that we bring back the 23 recommendations for further discussion. Is that acceptable? Let me just strike out the rest here. Okay, that's what you're voting on. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. So we have a council that really wants to understand these recommendations before we're going to accept them. And there will be some good discussions on them. That's good. Excellent. Thank you, Chris. All right, we are now at committee reorganization and volunteer requirements. Moved by Dan, seconded by Bill, that council receive the report entitled Committee Organization and Volunteer Requirements prepared by the deputy clerk. And further, that council support option 1 as outlined in the report and direct that template terms of reference for each committee type and a draft policy regarding volunteer police checks, training, and committee sponsors special events be brought back to council for consideration. That was a lot in that report to get our heads around. And I think Cindy did a great job putting it together, but I think it really needs lots of discussion about how it would work on the ground.
For
Craig,
you, Madam Mayor. So are we saying that volunteers need to get CPAC?
anybody working with children have to
Okay,
get a
just with the
CPAC.
children.
Yes,
Yeah.
but there's a difficulty getting the vulnerable sector CPICs.
If I may, Madam Mayor, our current policy is any member of the committee, of any committee, needs to have a CPIC. Traditionally, anyone working with children, we request the vulnerable sector. That has become problematic. So what we're suggesting is that committee members still would get just the regular police check. So that would still be a requirement, but that we wouldn't require the vulnerable sector check unless there's a very specific situation where there's a committee volunteer who's working one-on-one with a vulnerable sector.
I think too, we also need to define what's standing committee, what's a subcommittee, what's a other type of committees there are. Because when I read it, I thought, okay, which ones are standing committees? Which ones are subcommittees? Which ones are ad hoc? Which ones are not? And so there's lots of information to talk about with this issue.
Yeah, and we'll also be putting that into the procedural bylaw in regards to the definitions of all those committees that we're going to be using.
Okay, Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A council member is also a member of that committee. So would it only be fair that each councillor member have a CPIC done as well? You're asking your volunteers to do one. Each member should also have one done.
Yes, because you're at events and you're doing things with kids. So yeah, I think we should. We had to have one at the county because Fairmont Home. And it's basically can do it on the computer.
So
Okay, so back to this motion. Lynn,
Am I right in understanding then that we're to get a list of everybody that needs to get a CPIC and provide it to Cindy? And then you'll write a letter up for us to get it covered? Is that my assumption correct?
Yeah, I think to streamline things, to make it easy, if we had a list of everybody who needs the CPIC, then we can draft the letters. We have to do up a volunteer letter. So it's just a matter of then we'll have the names of the people that we pre-populate in the letter. And then we can ship those all back off to the committee chair to distribute to the folks.
Cindy, if someone has had a CPIC done, within what period of time does it sort of lapse?
I think that's a discretionary decision that we can make in terms of how long. I don't think there's any specific lapsing, like it's meaning councils, whatever you're comfortable with in terms of relying on that CPIC information, because anything could change, right? The next day, something could happen that could change the status of that. When we discussed it back in the last term of council, that we did decide to go with having those annual declarations. Just to confirming that there's been no change in the status of the CPIC. However, that was difficult to sort of coordinate and arrange. And I think there was only one committee that kind of coordinated that in any sort of substantial way. So my thought was that we just continue for just do it each cycle of council.
So 4 years in other
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing, Lynn, is to ask anybody in your committees if they've had one in the past 4 years. And then now they're no longer free. Is that right?
They are free if there's a letter confirming that it's been requested because of their volunteer status. That's why if we get the list, we can do up the letter saying, that they're needing this because they're volunteering, and then they do the check free of charge.
However, there has been a problem getting them recently with the change of having everything go through computer.
I think that's just relating to the vulnerable sector is the one that's causing issue, because they need a very, very specific job description for that. But my understanding, based on what Jody's research has done, is that the regular police checks are still fairly easy to coordinate, because you're not having to go that extra step to explain why it is that you need the vulnerable sector portion of it.
So the letter that you provide should
That's
give
the
that
hope, yeah.
information.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
Nikki?
hope.
Also, a problem is each time you need a CPIC for each different volunteer position you do. So it's about the place you're doing. So if I am applying to get a CPIC done so I can go on my child's school trip, it's specific to the Limestone School Board. If I'm getting one done to deliver Meals on Wheels, it's specific to that agency that delivers it. So you can't really come and share your CPIC that you've had done and give copies to. They have to be done specifically for that agency.
That's ridiculous.
But it's true.
Okay, question, and then Sue.
And it's just in response to what you said, Nikki. Would it be enough then to say that you were a volunteer with Central Frontenac? And if you were on multiple committees, you would just need the one done?
Yes, the one for Central Frontenac, but you
Yes.
couldn't go to your kid's school
No.
and copy that CPIC and bring it here and give it and say, this is my CPIC.
Okay.
That was clear there. You have to have it done
Yeah.
specifically for each agency.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, jeepers. Susan.
I just wanted to add a comment on the difficulties of getting the vulnerable sector check and how inconsistent it can be. So serving on a particular board, 2 of us had to apply for our volunteer vulnerable sector check using the same organizational letter. One got it and one didn't. I didn't. So,
Yeah.
so it's depending upon, I think, who's looking at it. There are some challenges.
And I really think we need to take a look at what we're asking people to do as volunteers. How many of our committees actually deal with kids? We deal in the committee, we set up events, but how many of us actually have hands-on with children? And I think since it is so difficult and, people are volunteering their time, and unless we're going to help them get these CPICs, not everybody's going to have access to computers and be able to do it. I don't know. Go ahead, Cindy.
So I think that's one of the things that I was hoping to try to address with only requiring the vulnerable sector in very extreme circumstances. And we may never need one. I don't know. I would hope would alleviate the difficulty in dealing with those types of situations. I suspect, and Michael, maybe you can confirm, but I think our insurance company would prefer to have some kind of police check done, that even if it's just the regular high level for most, if not all of our volunteers.
I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. Give a little bit of comfort.
And Michael, you need the lists anyway because they're volunteers on our recreation committees, so that they're covered under our insurance, under the umbrella of our insurance anyway, for that. I think the other thing with, I think with working certainly with children and stuff with it's just that you don't know some of the people, especially if there's somebody new coming into. And I think like Cindy said, if we can sort of stay away from the vulnerable, and maybe anybody that is working with children, then they don't do it alone. You have at least two working with them in those cases.
Anyhow, back to the motion in front of us, which says we're going to support option 1, which I don't have it in front of me, but is everybody good with option 1? Okay, as outlined in the report, for each community, sponsored special events be brought back to council for consideration. So more work is going to be done on this issue. We'll look at option 1 for now, and then Cindy will do some more research and some more drafting and come back with what she finds out for more discussion.
And I can't remember if I added it to the report or not, but I do have like draft terms of references from a lot of the committees. So my thought was we can kind of dump that information into the template, so we can kind of have the sort of standard boilerplate stuff that's set out in the terms of reference, but we've got a lot of the detail already from some of the committees. And I think some of the recreation committees in particular were sort of looking for some kind of structure for the terms of reference, which will help guide them as well.
Yes. Good. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Excellent. All right. Now we are at procedural bylaw, moved by Bill and seconded by Dan, that council review the revised procedural bylaw. Has everybody had a chance to go through it? And did you send comments to Cindy?
So that, and then we can, because I was thinking is once we have everything, this is another revised one, then we can go at a next meeting, if everyone is at the next meeting, to even go section by section, so that everybody understands exactly what each of those sections are entail and mean.
And I would thought that was what we were hoping to do at this meeting, so that we could bring back a final one for the March 28th.
But I
meeting.
don't know if have we received everybody's comments now, or?
It's not a bad read. I sat down and went through it, and there are little things that could jump out. Do you want some more time? Okay. Does anyone have, anybody who has gone through it, do you have any questions or comments about it? Okay.
But if you want to have more time, I mean, we can do it certainly and approve it in March. We can do it by sections or however.
We want to be able to incorporate some of what we're doing right now with this previous work.
Yeah.
So if we approve it now, then we're going to have to amend it again.
Mhm.
Is there a big rush to have the procedural bylaw in place, or should we wait until we have the committee stuff organized?
It's certainly up to council. I mean, we have to have the committees because we're going to have to put the subcommittees and the definitions in that, whatever committee system we're going to be using here that goes into the procedural bylaw anyway. So I don't know when we're going to be able to have all that done. So.
And one thing I did after I drafted up this report on the committees is I went through this version of the procedural bylaw and made some suggestions of how to synthesize this with this so that the definitions fit better. And like, for example, I'm suggesting that we expand our definition of committee, because I think as Councillor Irwin mentioned at the last meeting, the definition right now precludes most of our committees. So I'm, for example, suggesting that we expand that definition to include the one in the municipal act, as well as any committees established by council as an advisory, standing or ad hoc committee. And then, but not necessarily the subcommittees, because the subcommittees we will only deal with in certain limited circumstances.
It wouldn't take
So
us long to go through.
I think we should defer this motion and have more work done, incorporating what can be incorporated.
And then we
And
can sit down with it.
then we'll sit down and go through it again. Does somebody want to move a deferral?
Or you can just defer that one.
Pardon? It says the council review the revised procedural bylaw.
That's all you're doing, just reviewing it.
We reviewed it? Okay, well, we didn't review it to a successful,
Well, just that we review it and we're gonna bring
And-
it back.
and
for
bring it
further
back.
discussion,
okay,
further discussion.
all right.
We can go section by, we can go by section then.
Further review. All right, so Bill and Dan, you're okay with that addition? Revise procedural bylaw and bring back for further review. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. All right. Committees and reports. Moved by Bill, seconded by Dan, that council received for information Central Frontenac Trails Committee meeting minutes from February 1st, 2023 and February 16th, 2023. Any discussion, anything you want to add, Nikki? No?
Sorry, I think they're pretty self-explanatory,
Okay,
what we're covering.
good. All right. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Philip, that council received for information the District 3 Oso Recreation Committee meeting minutes from January the 8th, 2023. Any discussion? Craig, anything to add?
Yeah, not a whole lot, just we're getting a schedule figured out now. We're meeting every second Sunday of every month at the canteen at 9 o'clock. So that we'll be able to go on
Good.
the
list.
calendar there on the website. We're trying to pick up a few more people to help get the committee going bigger. The rink's been good, besides we lost the ice there in the mild spell for the Family Day weekend. And we're working on planning stuff for Canada Day right now, so.
Good, good. Okay. All right, all those in favor? Carried. Right, moved by Philip and seconded by Nikki, that council received for information the Waste and Recycling Committee meeting minutes from January 25th, 2023. Lynn, do you want to add anything?
Sorry, I don't think so. I think it's quite straightforward.
Okay. And Bill? Sorry, you're the chair. I should have asked you first. I can't remember who's where. Who's
Neither
on
can I.
first? Who's on first?
Yeah, it is, as Lynn said, it's straightforward, so it speaks for itself. We're still working on it.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
can we just, I'm seeing we're missing some minutes. So as a reminder of anybody that's on a committee, whether it be conservation or anything else, that you, as the person sitting on that committee, you're responsible for forwarding the minutes to Cindy to get to the rest of the council.
yes. Yes, and they should be minutes that have been adopted by the committee. So not just the minutes that someone has written, but it has to be approved at the next meeting and then we get those. They're usually a month behind, right? Lynn?
I guess that's my bad then. So I should be providing you the adopted minutes from the Quinty.
Oh, no. Actually, I received the emails from Mississippi and Rideau Valley right now on their minutes. So then usually we get it and I send it to Cindy so that we can include it in the package. I have been receiving them. Oh, yeah, Quinty would have to come from council. Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
I will catch you up on the ones that
Okay.
we missed.
Perfect.
My apologies.
Okay.
Okay,
Any meetings?
Okay. All right, we are at correspondence, moved by Nikki and seconded by Philip, that the following correspondence be received and filed, and it's 1 to 20. Discussion, all those in favor? Carried. Right. Bylaws. There's no public meeting, bylaws. Moved by Philip and seconded by Bill that bylaw 2023-16, being the 2023 budget bylaw, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 28th day of February 2023. Discussion, all those in favor?
Is this the overall
Yes,
budget thing that we
Yes.
went through?
Because it sets the appropriate tax rates.
okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Why do you oppose the budget? If I can ask.
You can ask me anything. I just don't like the fact that we're pulling so much out of reserves to start off a year.
Yeah.
I understand the process. I understand how it all works. It just,
Well, you got
in
two,
3 years,
you got
we
two
won't be
options.
even here. If we keep
Pull it-
continuing down the same way,
Pull it out of reserves, borrow money, or get it from the taxpayer.
or cut more things. And I understand it's hard to cut, and
Yeah.
I understand all that. I'm just saying, in another year, we should look at, in my opinion, look at doing a
We
different approach.
we hold our nose sometimes and do what we have to do, not that we like it.
Yeah, and eventually you'll get right under the water.
Okay, now, is there any notices of motion?
No, there are not, Madam Mayor.
Any giving of notices of motion?
No, there are not.
New or other business?
None.
None. All right, we have a closed session moved by Nikki and seconded by Philip. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, section 239(2)(b). 2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, purchase of property, Titchburn, section 239(2)(c). All those in favor? Carried. Good night, folks. All right.
Break anyway.
Yeah, let's have a coffee or a cookie and come back in 5 minutes.